What's going on, everybody? If you made it to this video, congratulations. You passed your AI check ride and you're moving on to BWS. Things are about to start getting awesome. So, what is BWS? BWS is Basic Warfighter Skills. This phase is where you're going to learn how to fly like an Army aviator. So all of the badass stuff that you hear in the books and see in the movies, like We Were Soldiers, where they're dropping down, nap of the earth, going in to do an air assault, this is where you're going to learn how to do all of that. So you're used to going out to, in P1 and P2, you went out to the stage fields every single day and flew traffic patterns, and then you just finished AI where you fly on instrument flight plans to other airports. In BWS, you're not going to do any of that. You're going to leave Shell heliport, and you're going to fly out to things they call RTs, or remote training areas. And you're going to perform your maneuvers out there. You're also going to fly throughout NOE boxes and just do a lot of cool, awesome stuff. This by far was my favorite phase in Common Core, and I'm pretty sure if you asked anybody who's completed flight school what their favorite phase was, they will definitely almost always say BWS. It's fun. I mean, the IPs, most of them have a military background. Most of them have flown helicopters before we were born, and they let you really take the aircraft to the extremes, and they let you fly like a real Army aviator. So let's get into the breakdown, just like I always do. Break it down for you guys. So I'm going to just lump everything in one phase. So, and I forgot to say, so I wanted to cover all three phases of BWS in one video, but I got to take in my notes on phase one, and I'm sorry guys, it's just going to be phase one in this video. There's no way I'm going to be able to fit in the three phases of BWS all in just one video without it being an hour long. So I'm going to just cover phase one of BWS in this video. So sorry about that, guys, but I want to give you guys quality content, but at the same time, I don't want to keep you guys on these videos for more than 30 minutes. And I'd like to get the time down even lower than that. So the breakdown of each phase, so when I do the breakdown, just keep in mind it's all three phases. So BWS is 6 weeks long. It is comprised of 34 aircraft hours. 11.1 of that is under goggles, so nighttime. And 1.5 is simulator, and that's in the very last phase, and that's just to practice multi-ship formation flight for the first time. Academics. So this is going to be your favorite part of BWS, is the fact that it's minimal academics and it's almost all flying. So you'll have one exam in phase one, and you'll have another exam at the end of BWS. So the first exam is just on, it'll be before nights, and it's on how to operate the Canvas 6s, which you'll be flying with in phase two. So you'll get a one-day class, and then you'll go back the next morning and you'll take the exam. It's like I think it's like a 20-question exam, and it's pretty easy. Don't quote me on that. Again, like I always say, the number of questions for the exam may change when you go through, but it's an easy exam. It's only 1 day block of instructions. And then the other exam is at the end, and it's just on Army aviation combat related operational stuff, and it's a pretty easy exam. like I said, academics are pretty minimal. You have that Anvis class that go over the Anvis 6s and how to use them. And then you'll have a call for fire class, and you'll have a terrain flight class. And that's pretty much it. I mean, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks out of the 6 weeks you're in a classroom. Most of it is all flight line stuff, and it is a huge relief. I mean, this whole time you guys have been going to flight line classroom, and now you're going to get the chance of kind of taking a break from that and just flying. And it's really awesome. Now, I want to also add, this is where I downloaded ForeFlight. So I know a lot of you guys have been hearing things probably while you've been on hold or getting ready to come to flight school, like, oh, you need to get ForeFlight. Oh, you need to get Flight Plan Go. Oh, you need to get this. You need to get a knee board. You need to get an iPad. BI and AI is when you really, really need your iPad. But I didn't download ForeFlight on my iPad until I got into BWS. Actually, I take that back. It was at the end of AI. But I really started using it in BWS. And you're going to use what they call Falcon View and AMPS for BWS for your mission planning and everything. But it's a lot easier if you do everything on ForeFlight and then you just input your points on Falcon View and then print off the time distance heading card. Way easier. And again, most of you guys watching this probably don't even really know what that is, but you are going to learn what that is. And when you get deeper into the course, a light bulb's going to go off and you're going to be like, oh, I know what he was talking about now. So that's whenever I downloaded ForeFlight and started using ForeFlight at the very end of AI. So it's not a bad idea to do it. Again, you don't have to. I know plenty of people that went through their entire flight school, their time in flight school without ever downloading ForeFlight, and they did just fine. However, once you use ForeFlight, I almost guarantee you'll never go back. It's a great program, and I love my ForeFlight. But AI is when I downloaded it, and I used the heck out of it in BWS. So I'm going to get into phase 1 of BWS. So on day 1 of BWS, you're going to sit across from your IP, you're going to meet him, and the first thing he's going to ask is to see your map book. This is your Aussie Fold map book. And a lot of you watching this video right now know exactly what I'm talking about if you just finished AI or if you're getting started with Common Core. And a lot of you guys probably don't know what I'm talking about if you haven't even started flight school yet. But this Aussie Fold map book is something that you have to have done before BWS. And there's no class on how to do it. There is a how-to instruction guide in the back of a black binder they assign you at the beginning of P1 that nobody really mentions. But it's basically a how-to guide on how to do this Vietnam-era Aussie Fold map book. But this is extremely important in BWS. This is your baby. And on day 1 of BWS, your IP is going to ask for it. You're going to hand it to him, and he's going to inspect how well you did or how well somebody else did. Those of you watching that are in flight school know exactly what I'm talking about, and I will not condone that on my channel, but do you know, I'm not going to judge. But, yeah, we're not going to get into that. Anyways, he's going to look at how well you did on your map. And likely going to hand it back to you as long as it's good. Good to go. And that's when you hand it in. But this is a big project. That's why I bring it up. It's a huge project, and it's required. And you are going to need this during BWS. Phase 1, for sure. You're going to use it every single night, every single day. So I'm going to go in to a typical day of BWS in phase 1. The day before your flight, your IP is going to assign you a route. for your map book. And a typical route can sound like, hey, I want you to fly from Shell to RT 594, and then we're going to do some RT work there, and then I want you to also fly to RT 582, and then I want you to fly to Andalusia. We'll top off on some gas and we'll switch out. So that route from Shell to 594 to 582 to Andalusia, that will be your route that you go home and make that night inside of your map book. You go home, you open up your map book, and you get all of the Gucci liquid highlight markers and the stencils, and you want this shit looking fly when they look at it. I had all of that. I had pink, yellow, red, green. You want everything to look really good. But it's these wax highlighters that you use on your to draw out your actual route. And you have to do it in accordance with the terrain flight manual. So you draw out from Shell to RT 594, and you're looking for, you're doing this as a military operation. And he'll also say, hey, yeah, you're going to go pick up troops at this RT. It's supposed to be, you're in BWS, everything's military, right? So when you do your route, you're not going to blow right through a city. Like, you're going to try to do this as like you were flying a real military mission, like an air assault or a medevac or whatever. Use your imagination. So in that terrain flight guide, it tells you exactly how to build your route. And then after you draw it in your map, you're also going to build it in amps. This is when I would build my route in ForeFlight. I would then take my route from ForeFlight and I would put in the grids inside of amps to spit out my time distance heading card, which is a card that you can put in your knee board, and you can use the headings and the speeds and the times and everything, because everything's on a timer too. You got a timer running and you're trying to be time on target plus or minus 30 seconds. So once you spit out that time distance heading card, and then you have your map all marked up, that's going to be what you use to navigate off of for that day. And I did really thorough mission planning. I'm not bragging on myself or anything like that. I literally had to, because if you don't find your RT in BWS, they will unsat you. No shit, they will definitely unsat you if you don't find your RT. So I literally would plot my my route on ForeFlight, and I would satellite image fly it, looking at anything that stood out. And then I would, after that, I would then go to a program called Zoom.Earth. I got to give credit to my neighbor, who is actually a high-speed dude. He taught me all about what he did during BWS. He went through several months before me, and he set me up for success. And I would take the things that I saw on Zoom.Earth, like it could be intersections, it could be chicken houses, anything that would stand out to the naked eye, and I would tape them along my route inside my map book using either tape or paper clips. That way, whenever I was flipping through, I would draw an arrow pointing to like the intersection, and I would have a picture of it, and I would be able to not only look with my eye, but I'd also be able to compare, like, yep, we are exactly where I think we are. And then I would look at my timer, and I would make sure we were on time. So that's how detailed planning you want to get if you want to be successful in BWS. BWS is a very fun phase, but it also takes a little bit of work and effort and preparation to have a good day. So that's the night before a typical flight. And then once you get the flight line, you then get in the aircraft and you take off just like a normal day, and you fly from Shell to your RT. You are not going to be flying the aircraft. The IP will be flying the aircraft, but you tell him every single thing to do in the aircraft. And you're going to have your map book opened on your lap just like this. You'll probably fold it like this. And you're going to be navigating. And you're going to be like, hey, you need to be on heading 360 for 4 minutes and 28 seconds. And you need to be at a ground speed of 80 knots. And you're literally timing. All right, we are at 4 minutes, 25 seconds. Turn heading 270 for 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Speed should be 80 knots. He's like, all right, right. He does anything you tell him to do. And then your stick buddy in the back is out calling out, hey, I see 3 chicken houses over here. Hey, I see we're crossing wires. Hey, I see a river running out there, and you're checking off. Okay, yep, I got a river. Thanks, man. Yep, I got a river. Oh yeah, I got power lines. You got power lines. Okay, yeah, cool. Oh, you see a cemetery? Oh, nice. Yeah, I see that cemetery too. All right, we're on track. We're on time, and on a good day, you're literally touching down at that RT exactly the way you had it drawn out on your map, and you are plus or minus 30 seconds. That's a good day. So that's leaving shell to the RT on a typical day. As soon as you are coming up to the RT, up to your release point, you're out scanning. And as soon as you say RT in sight, and you're going to know it's an RT because there's 3 beacons set up within the RT. They're bright orange, and they're set up in a NATO T formation. Or an inverted Y. I think it's an inverted Y. Don't quote me on that. But you can spot them. And you're going to say RT in sight. The IP is then going to say, you have the controls. You're going to say, I have the controls. He's going to say, you have the controls. 3-way positive transfer of controls. And then you're going to fly the approach in. You're going to give him T-slow. I'm not going to go into that. You'll find out what that is. And then you'll touch down. Inside the RT, you will then start what is called your flow. So your flow is comprised of a takeoff within the RT based on the situation. So once you touch down in the RT, you're going to look around, and if you have a large RT with good takeoff area, you're going to do a level acceleration. If you kind of have a medium range RT, you're going to do a constant angle. If you are really bunched up and the wood line is literally like no shit right in front of you, you're going to do a vertical takeoff. You're going to do whatever the terrain dictates as far as your takeoff. So you're going to have one graded takeoff in the RT. And then once you do that takeoff, you're then going to do the NOE traffic pattern. So everyone knows, hopefully that's watching this video, any NOE is nap of the earth. So that means you are 25 feet above the obstacles or the trees in this case, or less. So you're literally right above the treetops, closer than you have ever been. It's kind of freaky for the first time. And you're going to do a traffic pattern over the trees. And then you're going to come back and do an approach to the ground. Once you do the NOE traffic pattern, you will then do a terrain decel. Now, I have heard of some IPs in phase 1 doing the terrain decel actually over the trees. My IP was a little more conservative, and he had us do it actually in the RT. But a terrain decel is you're basically going at a given airspeed, and then your IP will say terminate or decel, and you go into a decel. And a perfect decel is basically when you're able to stop the aircraft without any while you're able to stop the aircraft while maintaining the same altitude the whole time. So if you're, say, 25 feet above the obstacles, ideally in a perfect world on your terrain decel, you would maintain 25 feet and come to a complete stop. That would be a terrain decel. Or maintain 25 feet while at least slowing down much more than you were going. And then after you do your terrain decel, you're going to then do masking and unmasking. So masking and unmasking, it's kind of, remember, BWS, we're in a military situation, so you'll be in the RT and you'll be like, hey, I saw what looked to be like an ISIS training camp, half a click north of this RT. We're going to do some reconnaissance on it. So you get your map book out, you find out where that training camp is, you look in the direction, and then you turn your helicopter to that, and then you select the spot to do masking and unmasking. So masking and unmasking, if this is the wood line in front of you and this is your helicopter, you will come up with minimal drift, peer just right over the wood line, come back down, and make notes of what you saw. So it's typically an OGE hover at around, I don't know, anywhere from 50 to 80 feet. And you're holding that so you can see whatever you're trying to see and come back down. And you're not supposed to remain unmasked for more than 10 seconds. So you come back down and then you do a salute report, or I think it's a SALT W report. I can't remember which format they do. Remember, guys, BWS was some time back. For me, I'm already aircraft qualified, so I think it was a SALT W report, though. And then the very last thing you do at the RT will be a slope landing. And then that's called your flow. And then you'll navigate to the next RT. But what I just went over, that's your quote-unquote flow. And that's how your check ride will be graded. So remember, flying from whenever you get into the aircraft, flying from that destination to a given RT, only off of your map, no GPS, off of your map, getting there at the right time, and then going through the flow, which is that takeoff based on the situation, the NOE traffic pattern, the terrain decel, masking and unmasking, and then a slope landing. And then that's it. And then that's the check ride. So, just like I always do, I'm going to go over my check ride story for BWS Phase 1. This check ride for me was pretty uneventful. The IP I had was kind of just a kind of a weird dude, to be honest with you. He's very quiet, very short, like almost like, I don't know, dude. If I had to guess his height, it was probably like maybe like 5'3", 5'4". Nothing against short people, but I kind of think like he thought like because he like was quiet and had like a resting bitch face, it made him seem tougher or something like that. But that was kind of his demeanor. And did table talk a little bit with my stick buddy. We went back and forth. I thought we did pretty good on the table talk, but that was like his takeaway for me is like I wasn't great on table talk. The flight itself went good, but he was like, yeah, you need to study more. And I was just kind of like, all right, roger that. I mean, you guys will learn when you get here, like table talk can go either way. There's something an IP can always ask you that you don't know. Or there's something an IP can ask you that you know, but you don't answer it exactly the way he wants you to answer it. Just remember that, like, and it's not a big deal. Like, they're not going to unset you for a table talk unless you're just really freaking jacked up. Like, you don't know an EP or a limit or something. And even then, they'll probably still give you a redemption shot. But I mean, you got to be pretty jacked up. I mean, normally the way Table Talk goes is they'll they'll give you some softball questions that you have to know, like your EPs and your limits and everything, and then they'll kind of dig in a little more, and then you'll either do really well on the questions they dig in. I mean, it's gone either way for me, or you'll do, you know, decent or shitty, and then you'll go out and you'll fly, and it is what it is. Your flying is the main thing that matters. Not saying Table Talk doesn't matter; it does matter, but flying is the most important thing. So we went out to the aircraft, did our pre-flight, and I will say on the pre-flight too, I was actually shocked this happened on this pre-flight. So there was some, I can't remember what it was. I think there was kind of like a decent amount of oil on within the engine compartment, and I was like, hey sir, you know, which it's not uncommon to see oil on the compartment floor of the engine, but it's the amount, right? So there was a little more than you typically see, and I left the cowling open he told me to leave the cowling open and he would be over there to check it. I brought it up to him and said, hey sir, you know, there's some engine oil over here. I'd like you to take a look at it just to make sure everything's good. You always do that if something looks unusual in the pre-flight. So he's like, yeah, leave the engine cowling open. I'll when I do my final walk around, I'll take a look at it. And I said, all right, cool. So did the rest of the pre-flight, left the engine cowling open, and then got in. I was flying second that day. And we get all of our gear on and everything. And he's like, all right, everybody ready? And there was something that I just felt like I needed. I don't know what the reason was. I just felt like I want to check to make sure he put that engine cowling down. So I opened the door and I peeked my head out there, and the fucking engine cowling was left open from his walk around. And I said, hey sir, the engine cowling's still left open. I'm going to close it. And he was like, hey man, good catch. Thanks for catching that. I really appreciate that. I'm like, yeah, for sure. And I closed it, and yeah, we took off. I mean, I'm on the same aircraft as you know. So we didn't really bring that up in the AAR or anything, but it was something I definitely remembered, and me and my stick buddy talked about it. But the check ride itself went fine. Wasn't bad. Both me and my stick buddy did well. It was just the comment about Table Talk was really it. But that's all I got for you guys. So that's BWS Phase 1. You're going to really enjoy BWS, guys. And I'm really happy for you guys. And the next video, I'll try to cover Phase 2 and Phase 3 together. But it might just be Phase 2. We'll see. So stay tuned, and thank you for watching. Till next time.